everybody. Always nice to see you this beautiful Tuesday. Kind of, sort of. It looks like it's going to rain. I won't lie. But did want to. We have crime fighter Delilah Bullhorn co-starring with me this morning. Crime fighter. Oh, look at her little puppy face. Look how tiny she was. She was just a tiny little thing. She's just a tiny little thing. And love this. If you guys love this cup, the only place you can get this cup is from our beautiful Sonia. And as you can see, Delilah is definitely a coffee bean. She loves coffee. Every time I make it, she's sniffing my lap. She's trying to find the cup. And latte. I'm a latte fun. Good morning, your blues. Melanie, it's nice to see you. Hey, everybody. As you saw on the thumbnail, today is November 5th. Bullhorn Betty has already voted. I won't tell you who I voted for. I don't want to piss a bunch of people off. But you know who I'm seeing them on TV right now. Oh, you guys missed it. I got it too. There he is again. I'm not going to say anything about who I'm voting for or anything like that. Like I said, I don't want to upset anybody. But no, in all fairness, there's a yin and yang to our society. You know, there's the Democrats, the Republicans, the independents. I don't want anybody ever being ashamed of who they are. That's one thing that we don't do. I believe in the way I believe. You believe in the way you believe. At the end of the day, we still all have to coexist. We still all have to get along. And we still all need to raise our voice and get out and vote for our party people. So if you're an independent, if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, today's the day. If you haven't gone out and vote, today you need to vote. Okay, no matter how you look at that, how you slice this, you need to vote. I'm personally voting with my pocketbook and my moral beliefs. That's how I'm voting this year. I actually like the guy. A lot of people are insulted by the man. I'm a very insulting person. I'm a very controversial person. It doesn't mean I don't have a good heart. It doesn't mean I'm not doing a good job. So there is that. So it's kind of like, yeah, I get him, you know, just a little bit. I get the guy. At the end of the day, as well as many other people that I've listened to for the last 4 years, you know, their pocketbook is not what it used to be. But I think more importantly, they're looking at the next generation. You know, we all had an opportunity for this American dream. I had an opportunity to purchase my home at 24 years old. I can tell you that children this day don't have that opportunity to purchase a home at 24 years old. Many people are living at home, doing sandwich lifestyles where they're having to build ADUs, which is additional dwelling units, just to have, you know, their parents, them, and their children kind of living under one roof because of all of the craziness. So anyways, I just wanted to tell everybody, get out and vote. That's just kind of where I'm at. In my day, but I voted like over a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. I never know when I'm going to be in town because of the work I do. So I do a mail-in ballot, mail-in voting, and have to sign up every single year to do that. And so this year I was able to vote in my primaries as well as the general by mail. So if you do have, in some states, I don't know if they allow them, but I'm pretty sure just about every state allows a form of mail-in ballot, especially for, you know, people that have mobility issues and have a hard time getting out to vote. Make sure you let your, you know, today's obviously a late day to let people know you need mail-in voting, but reach out to your county office, you know, supervisor of elections. If you don't know that you can do mail-in voting, please, you know, sign up for that. You can sign up for that for our voting in the next 2 years. And there's always, every year you get something from your county typically that goes on some type of ballot that you have to vote for. So consider signing up for mail-in voting. Again, if you're unable to get to your voting box, everybody in America should vote. This is our future. If you want to vote, vote. You know, everybody thinks that your voice doesn't matter. Believe it or not, it does. It only takes one voice to affect change. So always remember that. Even if we don't see eye to eye politically, always remember I value your voice, and I always want you to vote with your heart and vote with how you feel. You know, don't vote trendy. Okay, that's where people get in pickle. But anyways, I'm off my soapbox. I just wanted to remind everybody out there, today's the day to vote. So get out and vote. We've been talking about this boy, Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. He's a 15-year-old autistic, medically needy young man that seemed to have such a bright look on life. And from everything and everyone we've been able to speak to and hear about, from teachers to people that have communicated with him, some people from the school, you know, we've learned that he was mostly happy. He really enjoyed things. Yes, he had some different behaviors, but that was attributed to, you know, his autism and other ailments. But for the most part, he was a happy boy. You know, he was very happy. I did get some information that his behavior leading up to his disappearance was a little odd and off out of school. We learned that, when did we learn that? I think the bulk of our stuff before I went out there happened in April and May, and we went out to the location in June. So it was between April and May that we had one of the friends of a friend reach out to me and just explain that what her friend said. Her friend was a little shy or whatever, but they weren't really like you know, obviously they weren't friends with Sebastian, but they enjoyed talking to him, especially about gaming. That was the one thing that he seemed to connect with a lot of people, was his gaming. And they said he just wasn't, he kind of isolated himself a couple days or so before, you know, like that Thursday and Friday, and then he went home for the weekend. But the information that I had received back then is he just wasn't himself, okay? I don't know what that means other than that he just wasn't himself. So we have a lot of weird things and weird phenomenons or whatever, you know, everybody likes to pick on Betty, right? So either way, however you look at it, long story short, there was a lot of oddities that were happening throughout the weekend. We don't really know what truly happened on Saturday before he disappeared, but we do know they made a trip to Costco's, because that was the photo that people thought was a younger photo of him. It wasn't a younger photo. That was taken on February 24th, and it was the one that had like the cream colored or yellowish Optimum shirt or long sleeve sweater. I can't remember if it was a shirt or a sweatshirt or something like that. But that was taken on February 24th at Costco's. That's the only thing we know from the time he got off school on Friday. We know Thursday Seth spoke to him. He did not speak to him Friday. Sorry. He did not speak to him Friday. And I'm not sure what happened Sunday. You know, Seth spoke to him. I can't remember. And then, of course, or Saturday. And of course, Sunday, he had a full day. We pretty much know a little bit about that day. And then, of course, Monday, he was gone. So we don't have anything for Friday or Saturday. But what we do know is Sunday, he went to several places. We don't know what time they wake up, but according to his mother, during the week, they wake up around 6 a.m. Now, do they stay up late on Friday or Saturday night? I don't know. That was never discussed. It's never been put out there in the public forum, and if it has, I haven't heard it. So I don't know what time they woke up on Sunday, but what we did hear, and again, this is all allegedly because we have our opinions about this case, whether, you know, mom or dad or stepdad or whatever your theories are, the people that are telling us these stories could potentially be a person of interest or suspect later down the road. So we have to put that into perspective, but we also have to put into perspective that at the time these statements were made, they were relaying a lot of information to law enforcement. So I have to believe that law enforcement has some type of information, and um, they wouldn't have stated anything online or in the public that they haven't already provided to law enforcement. Just my opinion. I can't even confirm that, but what we learned for Sunday is that at some point in the morning, they woke up and breakfast was made. It sounds like there was a fun breakfast made. It was spaghetti, pancakes. Look it up. Look it up in Google, on Google, y'all. That was a statement, I think, verbatim. And basically, it's like a funnel cake type of pancake. If you want to know what that is, yeah, that's what I heard. I haven't seen them. I haven't made them. I don't personally know. Then we hear a short while later, around 11 a.m. So we know that this is still morning. So when was that breakfast made? I don't know. If I had to guesstimate, I would say anywhere between 8 and 10 a.m. Okay, just me personally. It could have been earlier. It could have been later. But we hear that around 11 a.m. there was a call. They left the house to go pick up a niece, and ended up picking up the niece. It sounds like one thing that was missing is we have statements from another family member or friend named Dara. And this person we keep forgetting about, because honestly, when you look at the case, we were told in an interview, I believe it was the Chronicles of Olivia interview, that around 11 they had to go pick up the niece, and then they ended up going to BJ's and meeting family, her mother as well as other family members. But do you guys remember the statement from Dara? It was only one statement. We know who Dara is. We know that she's affiliated. We know that with the family. We know that this was early on and people acknowledged it but forgot about it. The statement Dara said was that she saw the mom and Sebastian and the cousin for a brief few moments that day. So how does that all fit in with this story? Because the way a statement comes from Aunt Melissa, it almost implies Aunt Melissa is the one that went and picked up the niece and brought them to BJ's. So this whole situation is a little odd for me, but we still have Dara's statement specifically stating that the mom, Sebastian, and a cousin briefly stopped by her home. When would that have been? So I just don't want people to forget that. So anyways, we have a niece being picked up somehow, some way, and we allegedly have Sebastian, his mom, and a cousin meet other family members, most likely, according to Aunt Melissa and other family members. Who else was with them? I don't know. It was never alleged. I'm not going to guesstimate who was with them. I don't know. It didn't sound like it was Dara, but it sounded like it was other family. So could it have been other cousins? Could it have been, step grandma and grandpa? I don't know. They were there. It was stated that Sebastian got colossal popcorn, and there was a large popcorn and a colossal cookie, I believe. So I'm not sure if she just transposed those things, or he got a cookie, or what. I don't know. But they left BJ's. They stated that they had picked up some groceries or snacks. She said snacks in one interview with Chronicles of Olivia, and I believe we had to bring the groceries back in another interview. So was it snacks or groceries? We do know that they went to Costco's just the day before. I have to imagine that some groceries were picked up at Costco's the day before on Saturday. So what groceries were there? We're just going to go with Chronicles of Olivia, that they brought snacks back and had to put them away. We don't know what time they returned to the house. We don't know what time they decided they were going to leave the house to go to the bowling alley. We don't know who accompanied them. From our understanding, it was just mom and son. They went to the bowling alley. Many people believe that they bowled. For some reason, I just didn't believe that they had bowled that day. And, because it came down to the shoes. Did they take the bowling shoes home? Blah, 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 blah. We found out he wasn't bowling. He was actually there for the games, which is what I kind of thought, when we were talking about it way back when. You'll have to go through the videos and find out. And, you can fact check it. if you'd like. But I remember saying I didn't think he bowled. You know, he's a gamer. And a lot of these bowling alleys, that's the only place that they can really have a selection of different types of games, from pinball, you know, to Pac-Man, to other games, you know, the motorcycle games, the you know, they have the ones that vibrate when when you're hitting a bump on the screen. You know, it's kind of cool. So those are really, you can only find those at certain places, and mostly the only places you can find these video game rooms anymore, this day and age, is at a bowling alley. So it sounds like that's what he did. He played on games until he was done playing games, and then him and his mother went over to the Texas Roadhouse. We just listened to Silver's on the scene and found out a few things that could make these statements different. But we need to dive in a little bit deeper and a little bit more. So I'm going to have to review Silver's on the scenes. There's still another video that I need to review. But again, it always comes back to what was in the original interview, what was originally stated. And we hear it all the time, but when we talk about these cases and we talk about what could have happened and trying to find nuggets of information, we already know. I think all of us that are here either believe one of two things: that the people that were around Sebastian are either being deceptive or they're telling the truth. Okay, I personally believe a little mixture of both. I believe any good lie is based on a foundation of fact. Just my, just thought I would let you guys know who Delilah's voting for as well. Just in case you didn't know, she's been wearing this for 2 days. She actually pulled it off the bed and had it out here, so I figured she wanted it, and so I put it on. If you guys don't know what it says, for those that don't like my politician, hold your ears. It says Trump girl. Thank you, Sonia. She is getting so big, Elsa. She's getting huge. She's six whole pounds. Her little face, it's so funny because I look at this coffee cup and I forget how small she was. Look at that little face. She was just a tiny little thing. And now her face is already starting to grow out a little bit more. She still has a beautiful puppy face. But I tell you what, this dog is so spoiled. She is absolutely spoiled. And as you see, this is where she likes to be. If I move, she moves. If I stay, she stays. I keep trying to push her off and tell her to go play, but the only time she really wants to play is, what, you want under the covers now? Okay, get under the covers. She's a little camera shy today. All right, there you go. Get your other foot under there. There you go. Are you sure you want to be that far? No, you're comfortable. She's a little camera shy. She's like, oh my gosh, she's got me on camera again. Let me go hide. She's going to pop her head out. I don't see her putting her whole head under here. She never does. There she is. Aw, beautiful little girl. She blends, so we got her incognito here. So, when we watched, one time, the interview room, they were breaking down the green shirt interview, and I remember something that Steve Johnson said on that discussion panel, and it was that we really need to go back. You know, he had already, these are professional law enforcement, dealt with many, many homicides, many, many missing persons, does this for a living, very, top of their career, top of their industry, and love Steve Johnson, love, Chris McDonough. I love their passion. I love what they do. I love the organization that they created, and I love that they're always willing to help. That's hands down. I love that. And it is, everybody that has their, experiences and expertise really coming together to help in any case. But one of the things Steve Johnson had said in this particular episode was that we really need, if we really want to find out what those statements, you need to go back to some of the earliest interviews. And so they were looking at the green shirt interview, and I remember that wasn't the first interview. So we went all the way back to Dutch's. And that Dutch's first interview really was enlightening, because everything from the original interview, just about everything, has now changed. And many of us scratch our head, even though we're not allowed to have an opinion without getting arrested in communist Sumner County. We all can see it ourselves. Now, if they want to stick their head in the sand, that's not my problem. I'm not sticking my head in the sand, and I want people to know that I know that they know I know, right? And that's my right, and I'm entitled to that. I'm an American citizen. I don't live in the UK. I don't live in Australia. I don't have, I don't live in a third world country. I don't live in China where somebody can tell me what I have to do. I follow the law, and I'm allowed to live my life in the confines of those laws, which I do. I didn't always once do that, but I do this day, in this life, in this chapter of my life. So I know for a fact that what they're doing is wrong. But we are going to continue to have our opinion, commentary, and criticism on this very case, and toward the very people that were responsible for this child and this child's well-being, that seem to be living their best life ever. Just saying. Never seen such relaxed calmness on two people's face before. I've never seen a mother be without her child this long and still be able to hold together a conversation without totally breaking down. But I digress. So we're going back. We've heard this before. We're going back. We're going to keep going back. We're going to keep going back until we find this child or somebody comes forward. There is a $175,000 reward. We just broke that on this channel last night with new information related to Sebastian Rogers. There has been some information that has come in from Oregon as well as New York that the team, Seth's team as well as Dog's team, are really taking very seriously. And they want to know what is going on, and they are researching it and compiling the information and doing the search and the research that they need to do. We learned that. They have also several investigations. Let me just go through this real quick. And I'll read this in case you guys missed it last night. We are unable to confirm or deny specific regional details. However, At Night remains committed to actively pursuing leads across multiple states, including Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Illinois, Louisiana, Missouri, Oregon, South Carolina, Virginia, and Wisconsin, as well as various entry points into Canada. Our team is working tirelessly around the clock following the discovery of a digital footprint linked to an individual with direct ties to the investigation, as stated by Jay Daughtry of At Night. After reviewing a tip deemed credible and originating from Oregon, we have expedited our efforts to thoroughly investigate this lead. We have confirmed the presence of at least 2 individuals in Oregon connected to the investigation, who will remain unnamed at this time. While we have yet to confirm whether Sebastian was part of this trip, our focus is on corroborating these findings and identifying any additional connections. Dog Nation, we have new leads from Oregon and New York, and we're moving fast on them. We are confident that our confidential informants have provided valuable new information about those states. So because of those leads coming in from Oregon and New York, they have moved to raise the reward to $175,000. So just definitely want to give a shout out to all the people that have been working around the clock. And also remember Seth Rogers. He went to work one normal day, and when he got off, his world was flipped upside down. And that is what gravitated me to him. And it wasn't right away. It wasn't right away at all. It was through a lot of work, a lot of research, for me to come to the conclusion I came to that Seth Rogers had nothing to do with his son's disappearance. Now, if law enforcement wants to keep him uncleared and shackled and make him feel as absolute horrible as they can possibly do while they protect two really bad people that have allegedly abused their child, at least multiple visits from CPS, that's all we know, right? We don't need to know much more because normal families don't always get all these. How do you go all this time without DCF and then boom, now DCF is up your craw, right? We know that DCF was associated with them back in California, I would presume, because that's where he was, R'd and SA'd. I don't know how all of that worked, but I know it was very highly upsetting for his father because, again, this is another. It seems like everything terrible that happens to this young boy appears to happen on one parent's watch. Okay, at least that's the history that I'm seeing from my viewpoint. Do your own research, find your own factual information, but based upon everything I've researched, that's my finding. That most everything that bad that has happened to this young boy has happened on his mother's watch, not his father's. And that's a little problematic. And the Department of Children and Family Services were going to their doorstep, not his father's. As a matter of fact, his father was excluded completely, which would have prevented this altogether. It's very upsetting. So we're told that because we cover this case and don't want to lie to our audience and want to be truthful and know what direction, because we've looked down other avenues and we know what avenue we're being brought down because of factual leads. And we're told because we're following factual leads, that's a vendetta. That's a vendetta. So I don't know what is going on in this county. I don't know if they're collecting leads. I don't know if they're answering any tips. I don't know what they're doing. Nobody does. We definitely know that there's been no search parties. We definitely know that there has been no public display of forensic testing. We kind of feel like somebody is not doing their job, and we want to know why. Oh. Must be my neighbor. Hola. I'll be ready when you want to. Okay, let's do it 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. Gives you time to. Your hair looks good.
Feel better. I ain't got to scratch back my neck now.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I'll think 9 o'clock. I'll give them a call. I'm on a live right now. I'll give them a call. Make sure it's ready. Thank you. Did you vote? Oh, that's right. You told me you voted last week. Okay, just checking. Did you hear my security attack dog? My mean old, 8-foot attack dog. Oh, good gracious. So, yeah, that's because there was something happened, so I didn't get my car back on Saturday, with the paint, and they said they had to do it Monday, and I could pick it up Tuesday. So I didn't realize the time. My neighbor told me he would be back home by 8:30. He was going up to get his hair cut. So, long story short, I decided we're going to be going back to the Duchess interview, and I want you guys, this was their first dry run. Now, again, I have a lot of problems with this stuff because we're learning that the stepfather didn't tell his employment that he had a missing kid. As soon as he arrived home, he demanded that all cameras not record his home. And then the very first interview, pleading to the world to help you find your son, you won't even show your face. Those are things that I personally have a problem with. Might not be a problem for my audience, and that's perfectly fine. but for me that investigates these stories, I have a problem with that. And then the one time that they do show their face, it was very telling, in my opinion. So let's get back to the 2 interviews that are going to matter, actually 3 interviews that are going to matter the most, and this is the Duchess interview. Then you got the Chronicles of Olivia the Green Shirt interview, and then the Chronicles of Olivia interview. I think that those are the 3 videos that mostly contradict everything. Everything. Those 3 videos. Those 3 videos that the mom and stepdad willingly chose to do. Willingly chose to do. In a public forum and in a public setting. I think that's important. So let's listen. The one thing, I know Duchess doesn't like me. I don't have any qualms with her. I really don't. I have a problem with her for not liking somebody she's never even held a conversation with. That's pretty ignorant and stupid, personally speaking. But the one thing I that really bothers me is she's one of these people that has to fill in the blanks. Like, she won't let them just ask the question and answer it. She's always got to fill the air with conversation. She's got a sweet voice, don't get me wrong. But it's just unprofessional, in my opinion. When you're interviewing somebody, you have to let them answer. Quit answering for them. It's a pet peeve of mine. It's a pet peeve of mine doing this as long as I've done it. I really like people asking the questions and shutting their mouth. And I gotta tell you, this lady is a talker. I don't talk this much during interviews. Why? It's unnecessary. People aren't there for you. They're there for the interviewee. Just some constructive criticism. You can beat me up all y'all want. Doesn't matter. I got no qualms with her. I just wish she would, when people are talking. Just me personally.
Day, he had a great weekend.
That's
so
it.
do you want to, about...
Okay.
You're welcome.
We had a really good conversation today, and I appreciate you being willing to talk to me.
So she has had a prior conversation earlier that day with both mom and stepfather, okay? And now they're coming on their panel. They were willing to talk to her. This is the first known interview with either media or alternative media or mainstream media, okay? This is their very first interview that we can account for related to this case. And she spoke to them earlier that day. That means since earlier that day, some information has changed. Doesn't sound right. So she's going off. So let's just listen to this guy. I think it's very telling because you're going to hear Chris interject somewhere in this interview. And you have to understand the reason he's injecting is because they had a prior conversation that appears to need to be fixed up. Let's listen.
So much for being here. I really appreciate you joining us.
You're welcome.
We had a really good conversation today, and I appreciate you being willing to talk to me about Sebastian going missing. So I guess I will just kind of start out with, tell me what happened the day that Sebastian went missing. I know that his mom said that...
Boom! Tell me what happened the day that Sebastian went missing, but she has to fill in the blanks for everybody. She should not do that. Why? Because it could change what they were going to say. What happened the day Sebastian disappeared? Simple question.
He was having a good day. He had had a great weekend. So do you want to walk us through what that looks like again for everybody?
He did have a really good weekend, actually. When we come home from having supper that evening, he was playing, when he went to bed, when I told him to go to bed, he said, "I love you, Mama," and he said, "I love you, puppies." A little later in the evening, I myself went to bed, and when I went to wake him up for school, he wasn't here.
And you did tell me that Sebastian is not a runner.
He's not.
It's okay. Take your time.
Sebastian does not have a history of running. The young man doesn't go outside very much. Everybody in the neighborhood.
We heard from several neighbors that they knew of Sebastian but never saw him. And if you speak to professionals, okay, you can go research it yourself. A child that doesn't run doesn't spontaneously wake up one day and decide to run. It doesn't work like that in autistic children. Okay, you understand that? That is right there is bizarre. Now, people may on the other coin say truth is stranger than fiction. I'm one that believes that. The truth sometimes is stranger than fiction. I honestly believe some of the fictional novels that we read this day and age come from a factual story, personally speaking, because again, a lot of untruth is based on what makes it so realistic sounding is because you can foresee things happening. So I do believe, truth is stranger than fiction. But when you talk to many professionals that deal with autistic children, one thing that they say about this is that is beyond odd. Okay? Do your own research.
That knows him. He is very to himself, so to speak. Between the hours of 12 and 6, he has basically vanished. Walked out of the house, the door was locked, and gone.
He didn't take a phone. None of his shoes are missing.
Now, you told me that night that, now, Chris, you were at work, you were out of town at work, so you were not even home.
Correct, ma'am.
And Mom.
So she's telling their story instead of asking the questions to have them tell their story. Again, I'm only saying this not to dog her, but just constructive criticism, because this is the very first interview that we could have pulled a lot of information out of them, and she would have been able herself to tell whether they're keeping their story straight from what they told her earlier and what they're saying live to everybody else, but she's filling in all the blanks for them. And that, when you're dealing with cases such as a missing person or a deceased person, that's not good. It's just not good. I know that in all fairness, I can tell Duchess sounds like a sweet person and that she really does just want to help. Now, her opinion of me is based on lies and everything else, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, you need them to speak. Okay? You need them to speak.
Fell asleep on the couch.
Let's listen to this, because this is the one that has the good information.
Basically vanished. Walked out of the house, the door was locked, and gone.
He didn't take a phone. None of his shoes are missing.
Now, you told me that night that, now, Chris, you were at work, you were out of town at work, so you were not even home.
Correct, ma'am.
And Mom, you fell asleep on the couch about 10 o'clock, but you said that Sebastian went to bed at 9 p.m., and then you got up off the couch and you went to bed, and you said that was around midnight. And nothing was unusual at that point. Everything seemed okay.
Okay, so we just heard the mom reiterate, because you just heard Duchess tell her understanding of the conversation that they had earlier that day. And so she was repeating what Katie had said to her, and it basically said something to the effect of, I fell asleep on the couch at 10. Sebastian went to bed at 9. I woke up off the couch close to midnight, and I went to bed by midnight. And she said, yes, midnight. And you just started hearing Chris starting to step in to explain something. Let's hear what he has to explain. I'm just going back 10 seconds, and then we'll hear it all in one fell swoop.
At 9 p.m. And then you got up off the couch and you went to bed, and you said that was around midnight. And nothing was unusual at that point. Everything seemed okay.
There's actually a piece of, so to make something very crystal clear. So
this was information that they failed to discuss with Duchess in that earlier call, because he now needs to make it crystal clear for her that she has something that was wrong. Obviously, Mom was agreeing to everything that she was saying, and she didn't seem to have missed anything or say, well, there was something else. No, now we have another person stepping in, interjecting and saying, let me make something crystal clear. It didn't quite go like that. That's what he's basically saying. Well, it didn't quite go like that. Again, one more time. I'm going to shut up this time.
Midnight. And nothing was unusual at that point. Everything seemed okay.
There's actually a piece of, so to make something very crystal clear, so that way there's transparency across the board. Me and the mom were on the phone at 9:43 or 9:46 in the evening. We stayed on the phone for quite some time. The call logs have been verified by all.
So again, it's always come down to, how did she fall asleep at 10 p.m. on the couch when she's initiating a call at 9:43? That does not make sense. Be careful, because if you're in Sumner County and you say that, you might get arrested, okay? But I'm sitting here in Florida, going to be there, probably getting arrested. I'm just going to deal with what I got to deal with. But at the end of the day, that doesn't make sense. Raise your hand if you feel that that is contradictory. How can you fall asleep at 10, which is what was stated to Duchess earlier that day, and then all of a sudden now there's a phone call, a significant phone call? How are you going to incorporate falling asleep while on the phone? Interesting. I'm sure they've got it. I'm sure they've got something. I'm sure they got something. Let's see what they have to say to try to make this all work. I don't know.
Transparency across the board. Me and the mom were on the phone at 9:43 or 9:46 in the evening. We stayed on the phone for quite some time. The call logs have been verified by all the police departments, TBI included. We stayed on the phone. It was very lengthy. Mom did slightly start falling asleep while she was on the couch.
Oh, so she didn't fall asleep as what she told Duchess earlier that day. Now it's just, how do you slightly fall asleep? Does anybody know how to slightly fall asleep? Can somebody explain that to me in the chat? How do you slightly fall asleep? I know there's got to be some hate channels in here, or somebody from the other side that is just saying, I can't believe her, right? Well, tell me, how do you slightly fall asleep? I've never heard of slightly falling asleep before in my life. You either fall asleep or you don't. So, does anybody know how to slightly fall asleep? Because I can tell you, I was sitting in this chair waiting for yesterday, as a matter of fact. Sitting here, I had been up since like 4:30 in the morning, maybe it was 5:30 in the morning. I come out here, I'm working, you know, I'm working on all this legal paperwork. By the way, it's almost done. Hallelujah! Right? And so I come over here and Delilah cuddles up with me, kind of like what she's doing right now. And this is a recliner, so, you know, I leaned all the way back and I was just playing with her. Well, lo and behold, I don't know how long it was, but I'm like, did I fall asleep? Looking at the time, holy crap, I fell asleep. I didn't even know I dozed off. But I can tell you, it wasn't slightly dozed off. It was boom. I'm sleeping. Yeah, I've heard of that. That's an extension of it. What did Elser say? Hold on, let me go up here to Elser. Just resting my eyes. But how many times do you rest your eyes and only slightly fall asleep, though? I mean, when your body goes down, it goes down, okay? I don't know how to slightly fall asleep. If anybody, can somebody email me instructions on how to slightly fall asleep, okay? If you guys know how to do this slightly falling asleep thing, please send it over to bullhornbetty@gmail.com, bullhornbetty@gmail.com. I'd like to understand this slightly falling asleep. I've never heard of such a thing. Like, I'm on the phone with somebody working on paperwork, and I'm like, you know, like, oh, I'm sorry, I still got it. That's like being a little bit pregnant. That's exactly it, Oakley. I'm just slightly pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. We all pray these BS charges are going to be dropped. Listen, I have a funny feeling they're going to push the envelope. I at this point can't even focus on it. They're going to do what they're going to do, and I'm going to have to do what I'm going to have to do. So it is what it is. But it comes back to this hilarious statement of slightly falling asleep. You know, I've never quite understood that. I don't know, but I figured maybe I'd ask about it. If anybody knows how to slightly fall asleep, please send it my way. Tell me how it's done. By all means, please.
By all the police departments, TBI included. We stayed on the phone. It was very lengthy. Mom did slightly start falling asleep while she was on the couch. I had said, hey, you need to wake up, put the dogs up, go to bed.
Hey, you need to wake up. Now, if you have to say, hey, you need to wake up, is that slightly falling asleep or is that falling asleep? I again, not to be a stickler on details, but in a case of a missing 15-year-old autistic child that has not even been seen since the 25th of February, I'm a stickler on these kind of details. What does it mean? What does it mean?
Now, mind you, that was right around midnight.
Ding!
Just before midnight or
Ding!
right around midnight.
Ding! What did we talk about yesterday? There were several things that needed to be driven into the public. What were those two main things? Now, there was a lot of things that they want to make sure that the public understands. But there were two main things that they had to force feed down the public's throat. And that was, Chris is not there. Oh, I didn't mean to do that, okay? You know, just saying, not playing. We had Chris not there, okay? That had to be driven home to everybody. Distancing language. Distancing language, distancing language, distancing language. I'm sorry, if you need to look that up, go do some research on that and distancing themselves from a situation. I feel like that's what it was, but that's just my opinion about that. That may not be fact. So, but the one thing that needed to be driven home on every single one of the interviews, every last one, stepfather was not home. Mom went to bed at midnight. Right, slightly before midnight and asleep at midnight. Those two things had to be driven home to us and have been every single one of the interviews. They stated that. However, throughout these interviews, everybody, and I don't know how many times people sent me hundreds, if not thousands of emails talking about the stepfather having information he could not have or possess unless he was physically there. It seemed like every time he spoke as a statement of fact that the mom should have been stating. Not him, because he wasn't there. How would he know? But he was coming from a place of knowledge, not secondhand information, in my opinion. Let's keep listening. We're going to wrap this up in about 10 minutes. because I've got to go pick up Black Beauty. Hopefully she's been restored to Black Beauty. Say a prayer for Black Beauty. She still needs some work. She's still a little sick, but we're working through it.
So then Mom does go to bed and wakes up early in the morning to go wake her son up, get him ready for school. And now we have a worried mom who can't find her son in the house.
Can anybody explain why he's now changed the way he's speaking? He's speaking almost as if he's reading a report. Did you guys notice that? Because that is how a police officer would most likely write the information in a police report or an incident report. The difference is he's not a police officer. He's the stepfather of a missing boy. And he's talking almost third person-ish. It's odd in my opinion. Just odd.
Mom made an effort to look and search several times. Mom has called me at the time and asked me, she was like, I can't find him. I was like, do what? And she goes, yeah, I cannot find him. I said, well, hang on. I made the phone call and reported it to the sheriff's department because that's what we're supposed to do. And within 10 minutes, the sheriffs were dispatched to the location.
Because that's what we're supposed to do. That was one of the first interviews. That was the first interview that we as a public know about. Now, there were statements made prior to this, but the only way we're going to get those statements is going to the Miss Bobby interview. Now, the Miss Bobby interview, we're going to need to go over because I think it has a wealth of information, boots on the ground information that you're not going to get unless you are a community member of that community. And so her statements were really good, and she does two of them. She does the one with my ex, and she does the one with Terry Lynn. You could kind of hear Terry Lynn's disdain that she had been on that prior podcast, but I'm glad she was. Now, even the prior podcast, my ex, you know, he worked with me because I was one that, like, my brain is always thinking, and sometimes when you're talking to somebody, as they're talking, you're thinking of something and it just blurts right out of your mouth because I got a pop mouth. Not a pot mouth, a pop. P-O-P, pop mouth. That means when it comes in here, it pops out of here, okay? Sometimes there's no filter. Right? There's no filter, which was what makes me so controversial at times, because when I think it pops out, right? If I'm thinking it, somebody else is thinking. I'm just saying, okay? I'm not unique. So long story short is he even interjected when the interviewee was in the middle of a statement. It drives me nuts. It's a pet peeve. And I'm not sure why it's such a pet peeve. Maybe it's because I used to do it so much it drove me nuts. And now that I'm a much better interviewer, when people do that, it drives me, it really is a pet peeve. But I have to try to check myself because this is their channels, this is their way of doing things, and it is what it is, right? So it's just like, I try to give constructive criticism, but at the end of the day, you know, it's their channel. They have their names on their channels. They can do whatever the heck they want to do on their channels. I just would like to have things more streamlined, especially in situations like this. Like, this was a huge deal. This was the very first interview. And even though you had prior conversations, you should have let them talk and then said, but when we were on the phone, you said this. Is that not true? You know, that's when you start bringing in those prior conversations that you have. You don't start out with the conversation you have and then ask them about it. You want them to reiterate what they spoke to you earlier about. For example, we just did one with Jennifer Santinello. I had a great conversation with her prior to our interview. You never seen me say, you know, speak to her about the conversation we had previously. I asked her almost the same questions I asked her previously to have her re-answer those questions. You know, I added new questions in depending on where the conversation went. But, you know, I never said, oh, well, we had a conversation and you said this, and this. You know, I asked the question, and if it was a little different, I said, but when we had a conversation earlier, didn't you say something about this? Then it's brought up. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, that was a little odd about the sleeping. And, you know, people want to know why there's a lot of people focusing on 2 people to 4 people that were in and around Sebastian in his life, is because of these types of issues in these interviews. The constant change, you know, like, for example, she was speaking to Duchess earlier. She said that Sebastian went to bed at 9 p.m. She fell asleep on the couch. She didn't say, I had a phone call, 3 hour. How do you forget that? How do you forget that when you're talking to somebody? And when she was reiterating that, now, I think they were expecting her, even though they had a conversation, they were expecting her to ask the questions and not speak about their conversation, but she did. And so that's when the immediate interjection happened. And that immediate interjection was about the 3-hour phone call, because that was huge and it was missing. And they just had it corroborated by all this law enforcement, probably asking them the same question. What were you talking about for 3 hours that evening? I mean, everybody had to go to work. Everybody had to go to work the next day. Who's up until midnight? Well, there's a lot of people. But most military people don't, if they've got to get up for work in the morning, they're not staying up until midnight when they have to be up in only 6 hours. Usually they go to bed so they can get at least an 8 or 9 hour rest, especially on a Sunday. It's a lazy day. But this day was filled with so much stuff. So I want you guys to ponder that. If you guys can tell me how it is possible to slightly fall asleep, please try to describe it in words and send it to me by email. I'm curious to think, you know, what your thoughts are. And what are your thoughts about the changes? I'd like to know what your thoughts are about the conversation they had with Duchess earlier that day and the changes that happened from their story with Duchess in this interview, such as adding this now 3-hour conversation into the mix. It's very interesting. I'd like to see how you apply. If you're a hate channel and you disagree with me, you know, bullhornbetty@gmail.com. Explain to me why. Explain to me how you can be on the phone and be asleep at the same time. I'd like to know that. Anyways, guys, thank you for being here. We will be back as soon as I get Black Beauty back. We will be back and we'll have further discussions. Today's kind of my crunch day. So I've got a lot of stuff that's in the hopper. It's all got to be proofread and it's all got to start getting submitted. And I've got to get an affidavit signed. So I don't know when I'll be back here or when our next live is. Please sub up to this channel as well as Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories. I will be over there some point today or early tomorrow just to chat and everything on that channel. I'm sorry I'm getting away from that. We try to use all the channels as needed. Some of the stuff that I put on this channel yesterday, like the clown and stuff, really should have been on the crime story side because it's not really covering our main focus cases, which this is what I want our main channel to be, and all the other cases that we highlight beyond that. But it is what it is, you know. I have issues. What can I say? I forget my policies and procedures. So anyways, guys, have a great day. Don't forget to get out and vote. Vote, vote, vote. Vote, vote, vote. Vote with your pocketbook this year because we're all struggling. And I don't think we're going to be able to survive another 4 years of this. I really don't. I mean, guys, I'm sorry. It's scary. If anybody is like me, you know, what we had 4 years ago and what we have today has been heavily diminished. And there's no good excuse for that, in my opinion. We should have a good functioning country where everybody, especially the middle class, are making it and not going backwards. And I feel like we're going backwards. So God bless you. Get out and vote. Vote your conscience. Vote your morals. And we'll see you tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to have the results tomorrow. But we're pushing to have the results as quickly as possible, and as soon as we find out, we'll let you know. All right, guys, God bless. Rock it out with your coffee beans out. Don't forget to be fearless. If you see something, say something. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And until next time, please be safe, but more importantly, please be kind to one another. If you're an unkind person, today is a great day to find a way to kindness. God bless.